Chapter 8 A Good Story. The snowmobiles and the helicopter were both parked on the slope. The scientist and journalist stood talking with Nancy and Pete. "Oh no," Annie said, grabbing Jack. "What about Penny? We're not supposed to have a penguin. They'll take her away." Jack put his arms protectively over his parka. "I'll hide her," he said. "We've got to get her to Merlin." Jack heard a shout. He turned around. Nancy had caught sight of them. She was waving her arms and running toward them. "Hey, you two!" Nancy called. She dashed across the snow and threw her arms around Annie, then Jack. Jack held his breath, hoping Penny wouldn't be squashed. "Peep!" Jack pulled away from Nancy and pretended to cough. He made his coughing end in a sort of peep. "The chopper just got here," said Nancy. "Pete told me he was delayed by a snow squall. I freaked out. Where have you been? Are you okay?" "Don't worry, we're fine," said Annie. "Perfect," said Jack. "We don't feel a bit sick or anything. We were just getting some fresh air. We're ready to go now." Jack started walking toward the chopper. Annie grabbed Nancy's arm and walked with her. "Did you have fun on the mountain?" Annie asked, trying to keep Nancy's attention off Jack. "What happened? What did you see?" "We saw lots of things, but I was worried about you guys the whole time," said Nancy. "Your parents must be frantic back at the station." "They had their own expedition today," said Annie. "They study penguins." "Peep!" "What was that?" asked Nancy. Jack did his weird cough again. "Are you sure you're okay, Jack?" Nancy called after him. "I'm perfect," he said. As the three of them approached the others, they were greeted with cheers. Nancy must have told everyone that we're just little kids, Jack thought. "So glad you're safe, young man," said Allie, the biologist. He slapped Jack on the back. Penny peeped and Jack coughed. "Sorry you couldn't make it up on the top," said Kim, the photographer. "That's okay," said Annie. "We still got a good story." "Did you now?" said Lucy, the space scientist. "Yes, a really good story," said Annie. "Excellent, but you mustn't tell a soul," said Tony, the journalist, "or one of us will steal it." Tony laughed, and the others laughed with him. "Okay, we'll keep it a secret," Annie smiled. Pete opened the door of the chopper. "Brave little kids first," said Nancy. "Oh, brother," thought Jack. Nancy ushered Jack and Annie toward the helicopter. They scrambled up the steps, climbed aboard, and sat down. As the others climbed in and got settled, Jack loosened his seatbelt so he could buckle up without crushing Penny. "Peep!" Jack coughed, but to his relief, Pete started the engine. The rotor blades began to spin. "Headphones!" yelled Nancy. Everyone pulled on their headphones. Nancy gave Jack and Annie a big smile and a thumbs-up sign as the helicopter lifted off the mountain slope. "I love late spring evenings in Antarctica," Nancy said to the group. Jack looked out the window. The evening sky was lavender with streaks of pink. "This light always reminds me that we're in a different world from the world back home," said Nancy. Jack and Annie smiled at each other. If only the others knew how different worlds there really were. The chopper swept up through the soft light of the cold sky, up the slope of the burning mountain, past the orange-red lake of boiling lava, over white fields of ice and snow, until finally it landed at the heliport, where the red bus was waiting. The chopper blades stopped spinning. Pete gave the signal. Then Jack and Annie followed Nancy and the others out of the helicopter. Jack held Penny in place under his parka as he boarded the red bus. He sat with Annie near the back. Nancy took the driver's seat and started the engine. As the bus rolled along, Jack peeked through his parka, and Penny looked up at him. She blinked a few times, as if she was a little worried. Jack patted her gently until she closed her eyes and fell asleep. Jack kept patting the front of his parka to comfort Penny. He looked out the window and patted the baby penguin the whole ride. As Penny snuggled close to Jack, none of his worries of the day mattered anymore. His fear of falling into the lava lake, his dread of altitude sickness, his embarrassment at being caught by Nancy, all the cares of the confusions of the day were wiped away by his feelings for the orphan penguin. When the red bus stopped at the station, Jack and Annie followed everyone down the aisle and climbed off. As the others stood talking in a group, Jack and Annie started walking away. "We're leaving now. Bye, Nancy," said Annie. "Bye, everyone." "Thanks for everything," called Jack. "Oh, no, you don't," said Nancy. She grabbed them both by the sleeves of their parkas. "I'm not letting you two out of my sight again, not until I hand deliver you to your parents." But our parents are still on their penguin expedition," said Annie. "Then I'll take you to where you're staying," said Nancy. "Come on." Clutching their parkas, she started walking them toward the buildings. "You all must be staying at the wildlife quarters, right?" Yes," said Jack. Nancy led Jack and Annie to a building at the edge of the compound. "Well, here you are, home, safe and sound." "Thanks," said Annie. "Bye," said Jack. He was desperate to get away with Penny. "Wait," said Nancy. "Oh, no, what now?" thought Jack. "I'm still worried about you guys," said Nancy. "Are your parents really here to study penguins? I want you to tell me the true story, now." Annie heaved a sigh. "Okay, the true story is that Jack and I came alone to Antarctica in a magic tree house." "Annie," said Jack. But Annie kept talking. "It belongs to Morgan Le Fay of Camelot. Morgan wants us to find the fourth secret of happiness for Merlin the magician. See, he's very sad, and as soon as we leave Antarctica, we're headed for Camelot to cheer him up." Nancy just stared at Annie. Jack held his breath, afraid Nancy would finally have her heart attack. But Nancy burst out laughing and shook her head. "Where did that come from?" she said. "You guys are so cute. How do you think up this stuff? Seriously now, tell me the truth." "Well," started Jack. "Oh, look," said Annie. "Mom and Dad." "What?" said Jack. "There they are," said Annie. She pointed to a couple bundled up in parkas, goggles, and ski masks. They were walking toward a building. "Oh, right," said Jack. "Mom! Dad!" The couple kept walking and disappeared behind the building. "They didn't hear us," said Annie. "We better go. They'll wonder where we are. Bye, Nancy. Thanks for everything." "Nancy, you coming with us for coffee?" Tony yelled, standing by the bus. "You should go, Nancy," said Annie. "We'll be fine." "Okay," said Nancy, sighing. "Bye, guys. Run and catch up with your folks." "Peep!" Jack coughed his funny cough. "And take care of that cough of yours, Jack," said Nancy. "Don't worry, I will," said Jack. Then Jack and Annie took off. They ran behind the building. They stopped and peeked back around the corner. They watched Nancy walk off with Tony and the others. "Let's go," said Jack. He and Annie hurried away from all the buildings at McMurdo Station. Jack put his arms around Penny as they crossed the icy slope and ran to the cliff near the seashore. The treehouse was still there, tucked under the overhang. Annie climbed in through the window. Jack followed her, careful not to let Penny slip out of his parka. Annie pulled Morgan's rhyme out of her pocket and read the last part. "Then speed to Camelot by close of day, lest grief take Merlin forever away." "Let's go," said Jack. "Speed to Camelot." Annie pointed to the word Camelot and said loudly and clearly, "I wish we could go there." A blast of light, a roar of wind, a rumble of thunder, and of course, they were there.